Get right shit. Islam, Islam, Islam. Peace and love. Peace and much love. It's the Grand Sheik in the building. Conscious College in the building. Morris Science Temple of America, 84 in the building. Islam, Islam, Islam. Tap in with me. We gonna talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What we talking about, Grand Sheik? We talking about false arrests, false imprisonments. Islam, we finna go in. Ain't no time to play. Came to the right spot. Came to the right spot. Let's talk about it. Do we even know what a false arrest is? What is an arrest without a warrant? What is false imprisonment? Let's talk about it. Come on now. Come on in. Tell a friend. Tell everybody we here. We in the building. False arrest. We're finna talk about it today. Make sure I'm sharing it everywhere. What is it? Okay. Make sure we going live. We public everywhere. Drop a one if y'all can hear me out there. Drop a one if y'all with me. Drop a one if you with me today. Come on in. You came to the right spot. It's the Grand Sheik in the building. Conscious College in the building. We finna go right in. We ain't got no time to waste. It's people getting false arrested as we speak. People being falsely imprisoned as we speak. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Came to the right spot. Grand Sheik is live. We just had a good class on Monday on the habeas corpus. If you ain't got the habeas corpus class, get the habeas corpus class. You can get it for half off. Password is the word child. The word child. You can get my latest class half off. False arrest. Come on, man, let's talk about it. Habeas corpus. We gonna talk about it. All right? Let's talk about a false arrest. False arrest is arrest without a warrant. That's number one. The law of the land says the authority to arrest without a warrant was rather limited and well defined at common law, a law which has been made part of our constitutional law and the due process provisions. The common law rule on arrest is based on experience and common sense. As a general rule at common law, an arrest could not be made without a warrant. Thus, the right to arrest a person without a warrant is an exception to a rule. This simple rule was expressed by Justice Carpenter in delivering an opinion in the Supreme Court of Michigan as follows. The law governing this case is elementary, except for a breach of the peace committed in his presence or when a reasonable ground to believe that the person arrested is a felon or is about to commit a felony. A police officer has no authority to arrest without a warrant. Come on, man. Now that's coming straight from Supreme Court of Michigan. It's already been ruled on. This is the law of the land. Supreme law of the land, should I say, because when we say the law of the land, we means that you may think certain things are the law, but they are not the law unless they under the common law. The law of the land is based on common law, and common law is interpreted in Supreme Court rulings. And the Supreme Court already ruled. Justice Carpenter, Supreme Court of Michigan, ruled a police officer has no authority to arrest without a warrant. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Islam, because too many of us don't know what to do. So what should we do, Grand Sheik? You should immediately file a complaint. You should file a complaint. This is an example of what a complaint looks like. This is an example of what a complaint looks like. Once you've been falsely arrested without a warrant, a lot of y'all just going to court, letting them railroad you. But the truth of the matter is, you should be filing a complaint. Your rights have been violated. You have been deprived of your rights under color of law. You've been deprived of your right under color of law, Mo. Let's talk about it. False imprisonment, count 1. The complaint is actually just your statement of facts. What happened? People, places, and where it happened at. Who the people that did it? Where's the place that it happened at? What time did it happen? What day did it happen? You need to go tell your story to a competent court that's going to rule according to the Constitution and letting them know that it was a violation in the Constitution. Count 1, false imprisonment. Plaintiff realleges paragraphs 1 through 7. Number 9, on September 30th, 1992, the defendant, without warrant or due process of law, according to Minnesota Constitution, Article 1, Section 7, unlawfully arrested the plaintiff and acting contrary to law, did falsely imprison to the plaintiff, depriving him of his liberty. Let's go on Black's Law's Dictionary what the definition of liberty is. I'm reading out the 6th edition. Let's go into the Black. If you ain't got your Black's Law Dictionary, you better get you a physical copy. The PDFs ain't gonna do no good. You gotta get you a physical copy. Definition of liberty. Liberty defines in the Black's Law Dictionary as freedom from all restraints. Let me say that again. Liberty defines as freedom from all restraints, except such are justly imposed by law. Except those that are justly imposed by law. So we just read the law of the land says that without a warrant, can't be no arrest. That's the law of the land. So you free from all restraints except from the ones of the law of the land. Now you might be saying, okay, what if they got a warrant? Did they follow due process of law? If it's a violation of the law of any type, you are free from all restraints. Let's continue on. It says freedom from restraint of the conditions essential to the equal enjoyment of this same right by others. Freedom regulated by law. The absence of arbitrary restraint. Arbitrary restraints. You gotta know what arbitrary means. Arbitrary restraint, because they can have you on restraint. But if it's arbitrary restraint, meaning it's a violation of due process of law, they arbitrarily restrain you. Okay, that's different. Let's continue reading. It says the word liberty, guaranteed and protected by constitutional provisions, denotes not only freedom from unauthorized physical restraint, but embraces also the freedom of an individual to use and enjoy his facilities in all lawful ways. Acquire useful knowledge. It says acquire useful knowledge. Marry, establish a home, and bring up children. Worship God according to dictates of his own conscience. It says he can worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience. Islam, Conscious College. It says live and work where he chooses. Islam, live and work where he chooses. Engage in any common and lawful occupations of life. Enter into all contracts. It says enter into all contracts which may be proper and essential to carrying out successful the foregoing purposes, and generally to enjoy these privileges long recognized that common law is essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free people. Come on, man, it's the definition of liberty, Black's Law Dictionary. Because if you have been deprived of your liberty under false imprisonment and unlawful arrest, contrary to the law that says that it's supposed to be a warrant or some type of violation of due process of law, then you have to file a complaint. And notice I said without a warrant or due process of law, because you can challenge the warrant. You might have a warrant, but it still might be a violation of due process of law. If it's no injured party, then it's always a violation of due process of law, because how did you initiate the warrant? Let's talk about it, Grand Sheik. I know I got some people mad, but hey, listen, the truth got to be told. I'm not trying to harm nobody. I'm not against nobody. The truth got to be told, though. Islam. All right, I'm going to keep going. I'll just have to check something. Okay, so let's go back to reading definition of liberty. If you're in your Black's Law Dictionary, read along with me. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. It says, also, this is a definition of liberty. A franchise or personal privilege being some part of the sovereign power vested in an individual, either by grant or prescription. Let me read that again. This is the definition of liberty now. It says, also, a franchise. Now remember, the Emancipation Proclamation was, the emancipation means to enfranchise. Slavery was enfranchised. It said, or a personal privilege. This is your personal privilege. We're talking about liberty being some part of the sovereign power vested in the individual. See, even though we cannot have individual sovereignty, but we have the sovereign power. Sovereignty comes from the people. The sovereign power is our own. We have the power. Our birthright, our liberty is our sovereign power. When we pledge allegiance to a government, we grant that sovereign power to the government to protect our sovereign power. Can't have a sovereign government without sovereign people. Let's continue reading. It says the term is used in the expression rights, liberties, and franchises as a word of the same general class and meaning with those words and privileges. The use of the term is said to have been strictly conformable to its senses used in the Magna Charta and in the English Declarations of Rights, Statutes, Grants, etc. In a derivative sense, the place, district, or boundaries within the special franchise is enjoyed an immunity claim or a jurisdiction exercise. In this sense, the term is commonly used in the plural as the liberties of the city. So when we speaking on government as a unit, when we exercise our jurisdiction, it's considered a term called, in a plural sense, then you would say we have the liberties of the nation, like they put it as the liberties of the city. But we are nationals. We have the liberty of the nation, and we have a national liberty, and we have a governmental liberty. It's called a civil liberty. Let's read about it. Civil liberty, the liberty of a member of society, being a man's natural liberty, so far restrained by human laws, and no further is necessary and expedient for the general advantage of the public. Let's read that again. This is civil liberty. Now you have civil rights, but you never hear of civil liberty or civil action because they all relate. See, because what I'm telling you, once your rights have been violated, been falsely imprisoned, been falsely arrested, you have a civil action you can file for your civil rights being violated by you being deprived of your liberty. When you become a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple 84 in particular, Act 7 says you're entitled to the name of faithful once you are you a faithful member. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a society. So civil liberty is the liberty of a member of society, being a man's natural liberty, so far restrained by human laws, and no further. And no further says that you have a natural liberty, but within your government, of course, you follow the laws of your government, which is our divine constitution and bylaws, which are human laws for all free human beings. And that's no further that you are restrained because you have liberty. Because when we talk about moving as a sovereign nation, that means that we are loyal. We are not under the government or under the laws of any other government. So we have to understand hierarchies of government, national governments, federal governments, state governments, municipal governments, de facto governments, de jure governments. Where do we fall? The prophet said we are independent. He said we are independent, upright, independent. He also said a beggar nation can never reach its highest degree of spirituality. A beggar nation, a dependent nation. We cannot be a dependent nation and independent in the same sense. That's an oxymoron. When we make fun of people who say they sovereign citizen, but how can you be a dependent nation under the laws of another nation? You can't be. That's why the prophet said you cannot amalgamate with the European nations. He never said we couldn't work with them. He said we couldn't amalgamate, meaning we can never be under their jurisdiction. We have to return church and Christianity back to the European nations. That's their jurisdiction. We have to return the jurisdiction back to the Europeans. We don't have to get recognition from the Europeans. We don't have to go to United Nations and be under the laws of the United Nations. Not in particular. We don't have to get recognition from the United Nations to be an established nation. We already recognize. The prophet already gave us these keys. Act 6, he says, it's a new era in time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is the reason Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. All right, let's continue reading. So those the counts you will put together, right? If you was dealing with a complaint, you putting together a civil action. And here's a sample of a memorandum of law on arrest without a warrant. Now, all this you get in the class that we just did Monday. You get these templates, you get this triitis, we go over it. I went over this for 2 hours. So in the memorandum of law on arrest without a warrant, it says, come now, the plaintiff, a free citizen of the state of Minnesota who respectfully presents and submits this memorandum as evidence, in proof of the prevailing and controlling law regarding the matter now before the court. Arguments and statements of law. The defendant claims that his arrest of the plaintiff without warrant for the violation of 2 traffic laws was lawful. It says lawful. Defendant claims that he is authorized by statute to make arrests for any violation of laws of the state, whether they are a misdemeanor or a felony when committed in his presence. The facts of this case lead to the conclusion of law that the defendant did not have any lawful authority to arrest the plaintiff. The defendant had no warrant for the arrest of the plaintiff, and he alleges that he only saw plaintiff commit a misdemeanor, i.e. traffic violation. There was no claim of a felony committed or of a breach of peace committed. At common law and under the provisions of due process of law, such an arrest without warrant cannot be made. Since the arrest deprived the plaintiff of his liberty by an act not pursuant to due process of law, the arrest is unlawful. Due process is not determined by the legislator. It is a manifest. It was not left to the legislature to exact any process which might be devised. The due process article is a restraint on the legislative as well as on executive and judicial powers of government, and cannot be construed as to leave Congress free to make any due process of law by its mere will. That's followed by a citation. The Constitution of Minnesota declares that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Minnesota Constitution, Article 1, Section 7. So you're going to find in your state constitution this clause in parentheses that says you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, your liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay, let's talk about what these words mean. Let's talk about it, Grand Sheik. The words due process do not mean anything which legislator may see fit to declare to be due process of law. That's followed by a citation. Due process was intended to preserve established fundamental rights by requiring that they cannot be deprived except by the established modes of law as existing under the common law. This guaranteed that the government shall follow a specified and pre-existing rule of conduct, process, or procedure is in itself a right the citizen held at common law and was claimed by the colonists in early America. Thus, it is clear that the common law is the foundation of that which is designated as due process of law. This Constitution guarantees their pre-existing rights and procedures in the due process provision. Okay? So when we talk about exactly what due process of law is, It means that you cannot be deprived of your life, your liberty, or property without having a due process of law. You cannot just be arbitrarily restrained of these things without first establishing common law. Common law is it has to be an inter party. You had to do something to somebody first. They had to file a proper complaint against you. The judge or grand jury had to weigh upon this and then issue a warrant, and then you was made to answer to whatever you had to make a speedy reparation of. You had to redress the situation. If you owe somebody, you had to pay them. You see what I'm saying? What they doing to us is not that. It's not due process of law. And the Constitution secures that it must be due process of law. And that means common law is secured. Common law is the due process of law. When you want to define what is due process of law, it is the common law. Let's continue reading. It says, what is due process of law may be ascertained by the examination of those settled usages and modes of proceeding existing in the common and the statute law of England before the immigration of our ancestors. This was before the English ancestors even got here. This common law was already established. They had put it in their statutes in England because they got it from our ancestors. And we already got the House resolutions where they already admitted that they even got the Constitution from our ancestors. They even put it in the Constitution. Article 6, it says the Constitution is adopted. Who did they adopt it from? They adopted from the originators of the law. So the common law can never be violated. This is an ancient principle. But today's modern days, they act like it, you know what I'm saying, it don't exist because they got you under the Roman yoke. They got you under mental slavery. They got you under color of law. They don't want you under due process of law because they got you under the color of law. Islam, it's due process of law versus the color of law. The law of the land is the due process of law. Let's read this. It says the expressions due process of law and law of the land have the same meaning. Let me read that again. The expressions due process of law and law of the land have the same meaning. The law intended by the Constitution is the common law that have come down to us from our forefathers, as it existed and was understood and administrated when the instrument was framed and adopted. See what I'm saying? It's state law. This is citation right here, Supreme Court ruling right here. I'm going to read that again. It says the expressions due process of law and the law of the land have the same meaning. The law intended by the Constitution is the common law that had came down to us from our forefathers. This is the judge saying this. Came to them down from their forefathers as it existed and was understood and administered when the when that instrument was framed and adopted. What instrument? The U.S. Constitution is the law of the land, given and adopted to the Europeans to make sure we keep checks and balances. Checks and balances means that no one man can run this. It's not a hierarchy. It's not a monarchy. There's no kings on this land. There's no kings on this land. There's no one man can have absolute power. We believe in a republic form of government. We believe in the people having the power here. And we appoint our representatives, our chiefs and our sheiks. Islam, we don't believe in kingships. We don't believe that you can be a king just because you are born from another king and you have the bloodline. We don't believe that. We believe we all kings here and gods here and goddesses. And whoever is the best amongst us shall be the servant of the people. Islam, we believe in the common ancestry of our ancestors, our forefathers, our divine creed and bylaws. We've been had these before these Europeans arrived here. We already had government. They learned government from us. That's why the prophets say, I'm going to lead a European here long enough to teach you how to run a government, because you're learning your ancestors' government. Why you think they got the trinity of government? They got 3 branches. Who do they learn that trinity from? Who do they learn that checks and balances system from? Islam. We always had a Congress. Who do they learn how to put a Congress and legislators together? The elders and the youth come together. It's time for the elders and the youth to come together like Congress. Islam, you got the elders and the youth going against each other. But the prophet said it's going to come about a time, year 2000, the new Moors is going to come into the temple, seeing and knowing, with their eyes wide open. They're going to seat you old Moors to the back and carry out my law. So it's that time, Moors. It's time for the new Moors to come in with this fresh blood that's pumping from our ancestors in the spirit of Allah. It's time for us to rule again, more on the love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm going to continue reading. It says, in interpreting what the due process of law is, it has been held that none of our liberties are to be taken away except in accordance with established principles. With established principles. That's followed by a citation. That's case law. When I say followed by a citation, I mean this what a Supreme Court judge said. This ain't my words. This is what the judge said. The prophet say, don't argue with me. He said, go to those that know law in your city hall and ask them amongst your government officials. Islam. Continue reading. It says, thus the mode of arrest by which one can be deprived of his liberty is to be determined by the pre-existing common law principles and modes of procedure. A properly constituted warrant of arrest is a process at common law by which persons could lawfully be deprived of their liberty. The common law on arrest without a warrant recognize only certain specific and well-defined cases whereby a citizen could be deprived of his liberty. This could not be abrogated or changed by the legislator, meaning that the state legislators cannot change the Constitution. The state legislators cannot say we don't have a right to our liberty. The state legislators cannot override the common law pre-existing principles. Pre-existing. You can't do that. None of our liberties, it says, Supreme Court judge said in 1913, said, none of our liberties are to be taken away except in accordance with established principles. Islam. So if you ain't got the class, go get it. Password is child. You get half off. Child, CHILD. You understand? And I appreciate y'all rocking with me. What's tomorrow? Thursday? We got class tomorrow. I might go live in the morning, so check in with me in the morning. But for one thing for sure, get my classes, man. Tune in. I appreciate y'all. I'm finna tap out. Peace and love.